Hello everyone and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Mel and I wanted to give you some recommendations today on some fast-paced books to kick off the year, to get your reading goals started strong, or to get you out of the dreaded New Year's reading slump. If you're anything like me, I always want to start off the year really strong, get myself jump started on my reading goals and keep me excited and hyped up for reading. And I feel like the best way to do that is to give you some really good, super fast-paced books that grab your attention and just don't let go of it throughout the whole thing. Not all of these books are actually on the short side. I didn't want to give just short book recommendations. I wanted to bring you guys things that I feel like are really fast-paced, things that kept my attention. It made me want to keep picking up the book, find out what was going on, regardless of the fact that they may be a little on the longer side. These books are some of my favorites, things that I really enjoyed. Most of these have really good character development and really good plot, but I definitely will say a lot of these are plot focused books. But that doesn't mean that these books don't have some amazing characters, because the first one that I want to start off with is Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This book has amazing characters, but I think where it really shines is in its pacing, in its really cool world and magic system. This book is breakneck speed. You will be flipping the pages, dying to know more. Things are just happening left and right. This is a world where the women have magic and they can actually enrage men, make them better, stronger, faster. There are dragons in this world, and it is following Tao, who is not really much of anybody, but when something happens in his family, he is determined to get revenge, pushes himself to his limits in order to become the best and to be a warrior in this society. This is an African-inspired story that is just so unique and so rich in its world and its world building and its magic system, and I think that this series is absolutely incredible. Fair warning on this series though, it is currently only got 2 books out. I think it's planned to be a 4 or 5 book series. Theoretically, we'll have the 3rd book this year, but no serious promises on that one, so it has been a little while since the 2nd book was published. However, I feel like this series as a whole, book 1 and book 2, are absolutely worth the wait and would highly recommend them. Next up, we have Combat Codes by Alexander Darwin. This is a book that I just actually read this year. It was a self-published book that was then picked up and re-edited by Orbit, and I feel like this was a really strong story. This is a science fiction fantasy story about a world that was long ago ravaged by war, and now they have these combat codes, which are essentially people that fight out their differences one-on-one rather than having all of these massive wars that are destroying the world. So then we have Seago, and he is taken into a fighting ring at the slums, and he is trying to prove himself. When Murray sees him, he thinks that he has what it takes to be a member of the combat codes and train at the Lyceum. This is very action-packed. It has a lot of really good like martial arts fight scenes in it, so if that's something that you can appreciate, this has a lot of that. I think it has a good world and a really good plot. I will say that the beginning is very fight scene heavy, but as you continue on, you really get to like the meat of the story and get to know the characters a lot more, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was a completed trilogy prior to being picked up by Orbit, but the 3rd book is not currently out. I think it's going to be out at the end of the year though. And then we have one that I can't believe I'm actually going to be recommending, because when I read this book, I expected to hate it. I expected to just like be like 2 stars, like it was fine, but I ended up giving it a 4-star and thoroughly enjoyed it, and that is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This is a young adult romantasy that Cassidy swore I wasn't gonna like, but I did. It's so much fun. This is really fast-paced. It's Red Queen meets the Hunger Games. It has great banter in it, just fun plot. It has a trial in it and like a competition. I love trials and competitions. I love good banter, and this was just, it was so much fun. Don't go into this expecting like top-tier writing or the most original plot ever, because it doesn't have that, but it was like the best romantasy popcorn read. It was so much fun, and I honestly cannot wait for the 2nd book. I am going to be diving into that as soon as it comes out, because this was just so much fun. It's following Peyton, and she is an ordinary, or someone that does not have any gifts, and in this world, if you are an ordinary, you are considered a threat to the people that are gifted, and they are actually hunted down and killed because they don't want the elite society to be overrun by people without magic. And then we also have the king's son, Kai, who is destined to be an enforcer for his older brother who's going to take the throne, and as an enforcer, it's his job to go out and kill any ordinaries that he finds, and they end up being a part of this competition to see who is going to be the strongest. It's like a memoriam of the wars that happened long ago, so think Hunger Games in that style. It was just so much fun. I would highly recommend this if you're looking for something just fast-paced and a lot of fun. I loved it. Then we have Hunted by Darcy Coates. This is one of the few thrillers that I have on here. I feel like thrillers are very easy to recommend in a fast-paced story, but this one is a little bit different because this is actually what I would consider a thriller horror blend. It is much more thriller than it is is horror, but Darcy Coates is a horror writer first and foremost usually, so I do think that this leans a little bit horror. I was expecting to like this, but I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. It's very fast paced. I was constantly flipping the pages wanting to know what was next. It's about a girl that went missing on a hike and no one knows what happened to her, and her friends decide that they are going to insert themselves into the investigation. They are going to go into this forest and try to find out what happened to her, but there are a lot of reports of something living in the woods, and they think that that may have been what got Eileen. Once again, I think that this is just a really fun plot. It's not anything super groundbreaking, but it is just easy to flip the pages, and I would highly recommend it. Next up, we have one that I know for a fact is going to fit this category, and then one that fits this category as well, but I'll explain in a second. So the first one is Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. Never Die is the first book in a companion series. It is an Asian-inspired war-based story. I got about 50 pages into Never Die and actually found it to be a little too fast-paced for me and ended up putting it down in the moment. I 100% plan to pick it back up again and give it another try now that I've read more of Rob J. Hayes' works. I know that I trust him, and I know that I trust his writing style and his ability to carve some really great characters and really good plot. But in the first 50 pages of Never Die, it was not as much of that as it was a lot of action scenes. So I definitely think this fits the fast-paced category. With that being said, book 2, I believe, Pawn's Gambit, is actually the one that I am like wholeheartedly recommending, even though it is a little bit slower than Never Die, because I really enjoyed Pawn's Gambit. I gave it a 4-star. It's about these gods, and they are like meddling in the worlds of men, and they have these champions that are looking for certain objects in order to see which god is going to be the head of the gods for the next 100,000 years, something like that. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, I think he crafts some really good characters. I always think he has a great plot, and both of these are very fast-paced, although Never Die is definitely the more fast-paced, I think, of the two. Then we have Queen of Blood by Sarah Beth Durst. This one really surprised me this year. I thoroughly enjoyed this book and didn't know if I was going to. It's a young adult slash new adult fantasy about a world where there are spirits, and these spirits are not always the nicest. There is a queen that is basically in charge of all of the spirits, and without her rule they would be unleashed and they tear apart villages and pillage and kill people because that's just their base nature. And we have a girl who loses her entire family to a attack by the spirits, and she ends up being trained to be in the running for the next queen. I think that this world was just a lot of fun. I did like the training scenes, and I haven't read anything that had spirits quite like this before. It is very fast-paced. The ending was a little bit rushed in the fact that it was so fast-paced, but I still thoroughly enjoyed this. This is a completed trilogy, so if you pick it up, you won't have to wait for the next book, and I would thoroughly recommend it. Then we have The Passengers by John Marrs. This is a sci or a tech thriller, and it is definitely very thrillery. It is fast-paced. You already kind of know what's going to happen, but you're on the edge of your seat just waiting to find out how it's going to happen. It's about a world where there are self-driving cars, and all of these people get in their cars to go about their business of their daily lives and get trapped in them with someone else controlling the vehicle. And you have like this group of people in a room that are deciding who lives, and you know that these cars are on a collision course to collide with one another, killing everyone in the cars as well as everyone around them, and you can only save one person. So it's definitely a question of morality. Who are you going to save? Why do you consider one life better than someone else's? Along with the fact that you don't always know people, and it's very interesting to see their lives unravel before you while also on this high-speed car crash waiting to happen. Then we have Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. This one is definitely very fast-paced, a ton of fun. It's different in that this is a thriller featuring older women. So we have 2 points of view in this. One point of view where these women are spies and they're like actively in their training and being spies. And then we have them in their 60s where they are about to retire but then realize that someone is out to kill them. And they go on this spy investigation in their 60s to try to figure out who is after them. It was just so much fun. It was not what I expected it to be. It was, like I said, really fast paced, and I loved the relationship dynamic between all of the characters. I was laughing. I couldn't put it down. I don't know what it was about it, if it was right moment, right book kind of thing, but I really enjoyed it and would definitely recommend it. Next up, we have Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar. This is a young adult slasher, and this is one that I feel like is not going to be a surprise to be on this this list. It is highly recommended as a fast-paced horror story, but it is about a group of teenagers that are in school. They're all going to go to a cornfield during Halloween, and somebody dons a clown mask and starts to massacre everyone. This definitely has a lot of like real world based themes. It's not just a slasher for the sake of slashing. I thought it was a lot of fun and well done. I liked the characters in this, although characters obviously aren't like the forefront of a slasher, but I don't think that it was quite as cheesy as most of the slashers that I read. Normally I find that slashers really give you some horrible characters that you don't care about so that when they die it's okay, but also I think this did a really good job of giving me characters that I was okay with dying, but also was like, man, why'd that character have to die all at the same time? So I would definitely recommend this. Even if you're not a young adult fan, I would still give it a try if you like slashers. And the last one that I have to recommend is Blood Trials by N.E. Davenport. This is another science fiction fantasy book that I picked up a couple of years ago and really enjoyed. It is a duology, and I really need to finish out this duology instead of just letting it sit here because I thought it was a lot of fun. We're following Maureen, who is determined to figure out what happened to her grandfather. He was, she believed, killed, and she is on a hunt to figure out what happened to him. And by doing this, she is going to be joining the Marines. I believe they're Marines. The Praetorian Guard, which is basically a Marine. And they are the ones that like carry out order. But in order to become one of these, you have to go through a lot of really extensive trials on world and off world, and they are deadly. So this I would say is a little bit of like Red Rising meets the Hunger Games, I guess. And I really enjoyed this. My only complaint was that I felt like the first half and the second half felt like two different books to me, but the second half was definitely setting up less of a trial situation and more of a politics-based type of story, which is fine. It just, be warned, it does kind of have a tone shift around the 60% mark. This book is pretty brutal. It is a young adult slash new adult, I would say, probably more new adult book, so it does have some graphic themes in it, but it definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. I love a good trial. Trials, combat, those are just buzzwords for me, and I enjoyed this book a lot. So I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for something that is familiar in themes, but also feels quite different. Okay guys, so those are all the books that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Let me know down in the comments below what some of your recommendations would be for some super fast-paced books. If you just want to let me know that you were here and hanging out, leave me a rabbit emoji for speed. Once again, links to my Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads are all in the description box below. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Bye!